Oh, that's the GCC welcome. Kia ora koutou, kia ora te whānau o ihu karaiti. Hello to you, the family of Jesus Christ. It's a real privilege to be here with you this morning. You truly are a church who is leading the way in how you're reaching people for Christ right here in Green Lane and in the surrounding area. This morning we're going to reflect a little bit and celebrate on what God has done both through your church and nationally through the work of Christians Against Poverty. And we're going to hear of some of the stories of the lives changed both now and for eternity through the work of Christians Against Poverty. But I think first I have to challenge the GCC staff team to a table tennis competition at the CAP head office, because I currently hold the captain's trophy for Christians Against Poverty. It might be something more to do with my partner than to me, but we'll see. We should make that happen. But yeah, ka whakamohoi aho, I thought I'd start by introducing myself. Ko Mangere toku maunga, ko Manuko toku moana, ko te whānau o ihu karaiti toku iwi, ko whare karakia o Mangere toku marae, ko Aimee mai toku ingoa, ko Ben mai toku ho rangatira, ko Christians Against Poverty toku mahi. So Mangere is my mountain. I live just over the bridge. Manukau is my ocean. The family of Jesus Christ is my tribe. And Mangere Baptist is my meeting place where I fellowship like you guys this morning. Aimee mai is my name, Ben mai is my husband, and Christians Against Poverty is the work that I am about. So I'm the CEO of Christians Against Poverty, as Jonathan said. I've been working with CAP for 9 years and leading it for the last 5, and I truly can't think of a better job. I can definitely think of an easier one, but not a better one. And when I find something more eternally significant or more presently transformational, I will be the first one there. But it's a huge privilege for me to be a part of this work. Before getting involved in Christians Against Poverty, I was also an accountant, Daniel, but we don't go there. Before getting involved in CAP, I guess I wasn't a stranger to poverty. I certainly didn't have first-hand experience of it myself. I was privileged in that way. But I guess that God somehow prepared me for this work, because in fact I grew up in none other than Poverty Bay. So in a little place just outside of Gisborne called Paratahi, and I went to school with kids who had holes in their clothes, who had no shoes and no lunch. But what I didn't realise then that I realise now is that poverty is about so much more than lack of money or lack of possessions. It's about so much more than that. Poverty is about loss of well-being, when every phone call you receive could be just another creditor, marking more anxiety in your life. When you get another rejection letter from that job you're applying for, stress rises and health really does begin to suffer. And poverty is about loss of relationships. When you can't afford to put petrol in the car or credit on your phone, or an addiction takes all the spare time you have, you begin to lose connection with family and friends. Poverty brings about loss of dignity when you're trying to figure out how to feed your kids for $8 a day, like most of the clients that come to CAP for debt help, you begin to hate yourself for not being able to provide. And most heartbreakingly, poverty is about loss of life. In fact, when people first call the CAP Free helpline, 1 in 4 have considered or attempted suicide. There are people all over this country, Aotearoa, right here in this community, families just like yours and mine, who have lost so much and who have been so pushed to the margins that they can't find their way back, not on their own at least. Many of them are people in debt or unemployed, possibly struggling with life-controlling habits or lack of essential life skills, and they need help and they need hope. That's why Christians Against Poverty is here. That's why GCC, you're here, and that's why you run these ministries of CAP along with many other things that you do. In November last year, it marked 10 years of Christians Against Poverty working in churches all over New Zealand to release Kiwi families who are struggling and suffering in debt, poverty and its causes. You know, you here have been providing CAP to the local community for just about 9 years. So nearly in April, you'll have been providing CAP money, a money education course, to your community for 9 years. Nearly 8 years ago, you started your work through the CAP Debt Centre here, helping those suffering in unmanageable debt. And then 3.5 years ago, you started the CAP Job Club, which is helping the long-term unemployed into employment. And then Life Skills was kicked off just 6 months ago to help people thrive on a lower income. You've got one left, release groups. So I don't know who's going to pick that one up. It's a bit of a challenge. But I know you're doing a series on the story of Jesus at the moment. And the story of Jesus has to be the best story, right? But the story of CAP is one that starts with the story of Jesus. One of CAP's foundational scriptures is from Luke 4, where Jesus starts his public ministry. There is a little bit of pressure with this being one of your pastor's favourite scriptures, but I'm going to give it a go. So if you've got your Bibles here, if you want to turn to Luke 4, I'm going to read from 16 to 21 in Luke 4. Give you a moment there. Phones are fine too, just no Facebook. Yeah, so Luke 4, 16 to 21. Jesus went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read. And the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him. He began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." What Jesus does here is totally countercultural and completely unexpected. He reads this passage from Isaiah, speaking of the future Messiah they were all expecting, and says essentially, "No, I'm not coming as an earthly king like you thought I would. I'm not coming to overthrow the Roman Empire, but I am the Messiah. I am the one Isaiah wrote about. I am the one you have been waiting for. But I have come with good news for the poor, to heal the sick, to bind up the brokenhearted." This is Jesus' mission statement. And immediately after this passage, Jesus starts living out what he preaches. In fact, Jews didn't believe that they possessed knowledge unless it was lived out. You know, what we think of it as knowledge today is far more a Greek philosophy on the way of knowledge than a Jewish one. But for a Jew, only if you're living it do you know it, and could you claim to know it. So Jesus' knowledge was legit. His words are backed up with his actions. He entered a world that believed that the poor were getting what they deserved. And while people told the blind, the lame, the sick, the poor to leave him alone, to be quiet, Jesus sought them out. He stopped, he listened to their stories, he saw past their shame, and then he healed their sickness and forgave their sins. He gave physical help and spiritual hope. And while many believed that the marginalised weren't their problem, he said, like in the parable of the Good Samaritan, that being a neighbour meant stopping for the one person, or that one lost sheep, like Luke 15, that we see on the side of the road, and providing their needs, clothing or shelter, food or friendship, debt help or job help. While others saw brokenness in family situations that were too hard to fix, Jesus, he saw through the eyes of compassion. And his compassion has no limits. He embodied the good news that he himself came to give freedom for this life and for the next. While the religious leaders were looking for a king to rule and reign on earth, Jesus took all of the brokenness, all of the loss, all of the world's misery on himself and was nailed to the cross. Through his life, through his death, and through his resurrection, Jesus changed everything. And he gave us a beautiful model to follow. Every time I get overwhelmed by the scale of poverty in our nation, and it's not hard to see that scale. You look at the news or you just look out on the street and you see the problem that exists. Or every time I see a problem that's too big, that seems too big to fix, I remember who Jesus is. Remember that the same Spirit that raised him from the dead lives in me and lives in each of you and each of his people in this nation. His Spirit enables each of us to reach into brokenness and to offer a helping hand, to value each and every individual, to show compassion that has no limits, and to share the good news of Jesus Christ himself. The question is, how do we do this, right? How do we live out his mission today? I'd like to share one way we've found to do it at CAP. Today, built on Jesus' proclamation, CAP exists to bring practical help and the good news to the poor, to release people from imprisonment, of debt and poverty, and to set the burdened, battered and beaten down absolutely free. So 10 years ago, some good friends of mine now, Gareth and Heather Jones, they came to New Zealand with just a few $1,000s, a few names of people who they thought might be interested in CAP, and a belief that as Christians, God calls us to live as Jesus did. To live out the gospel by loving the poor and comforting the brokenhearted. So I'd like to show you a video that tells you the story of CAP quite succinctly and features some of the inspiring people whose lives have been transformed by your work here at GCC and other churches around Aotearoa. So this is the story that you are a part of, church. This is a story of Christians Against Poverty.
September 2013.
May 2017.
26th of January 2017.
April 22nd, 2016.
26th of March 2015.
October 2016.
December the 5th, 2016.
13th of February 2014.
In April 2015, we finally became debt-free.
June 2016, I got my job.
In August 2016, my husband and I became debt-free.
October 2016, Jesus came into my life.
He aha te menui o te ao. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata. If I ask you, what is the most important thing in the world? It is people, it is people, it is people. Now this is the story of Christians Against Poverty, Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's a story of everyday individuals. Christ and his church transforming our nation, one precious life at a time.
I remember the first clients who started working with us. I remember the first centre. I remember the first case workers. I remember the first signs that the church in New Zealand would respond to our vision and our heart for your nation. I remember the first supporters. I remember the first employees, the first volunteers. It was an electrifying time to see God use a bunch of ordinary people with very little begin this incredible journey from literally sleeping in the office. We had one room in the house that we rented that was where I slept, and then it was where we worked. To see God do what he's done is exhilarating, humbling, and amazing. I often say to the teams around the world that we overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we generally underestimate what can be achieved in 10, and CAP New Zealand is an example of abundantly more than I could ever have dreamt or imagined when I first arrived on your shores. It's been a miracle.
Back in 2008, a friend of mine gave me a copy of John Kirkby's book, Nevertheless. And let me tell you, God got my attention. It was clear to me that Christians Against Poverty had a practical and spiritual way of outworking this compassion that God had put inside of me. That his church could see our nation changed by helping people who were struggling in poverty in Aotearoa. That they could show them that they had hope, that they did have a future, and that they indeed had a God who loved and adored them. When I joined the staff team of Christians Against Poverty, CAP was just 1 year old in New Zealand. We had 5 people at the head office, we had 4 debt centres around the country, and yep, that is about it. Not yet had we seen anyone go debt-free, yet we had seen just a few people already make decisions for Jesus Christ. So we had this real sense that God was stirring something, that he was doing something mighty. Now fast forward 5 years. In January 2013, I took on the leadership of CAP. There were 13 of us at head office. There were 13 churches running CAP debt centres around the country. There were 93 churches running the CAP money course. And 149 people had gone debt-free. And the best ever, 225 people had made commitments for Jesus Christ. There was a real sense of momentum, and it really began to feel like a movement of God in our nation.
Coming to CAP in 2014, it was an exciting time. We were coming off the back of a lot of growth in the debt centre network and looking for new ways to support and serve the poor and needy in New Zealand. We knew that unemployment was a key driver of poverty, so we set about launching CAP Job Clubs. I had the privilege of being part of the pilot that we ran, and it was a really humbling experience. We were pretty sure that it would work in terms of equipping people with the skills that they needed to find work, but the thing that blew me away and that I found incredibly beautiful was getting 9 people together who were strangers. The one thing they had in common was that they were unemployed, and seeing them become friends and seeing the way that they encouraged each other and the community that they formed was really beautiful. The thing about what the community aspect does is it gives a platform to introduce hope, and hope is powerful. And hope doesn't start when someone finds work. Hope doesn't start when someone is set free from addiction. Hope starts the moment that someone realises that they're worth caring about, the moment that they realise they have value, the moment that they realise that they have something that they can offer, that they're fearfully and wonderfully made. Hope is the catalyst for change to take place and transformation to happen. Coming off the energy that was built by CAP Job Clubs, we were excited to help churches engage with other forms of poverty. So in 2016, we launched another ministry, CAP Release Groups, supporting people with life-controlling habits and addictions. And if that wasn't enough, in 2017, we launched another ministry, CAP Life Skills, enabling people to thrive on a low income. For me, I am blown away looking back at what God has done over the last 10 years in CAP. Starting from debt counselling, adding in helping the long-term unemployed, supporting people with life-controlling habits, and enabling those on low income to thrive. It is incredibly humbling and a reminder that God can do more than we ask or imagine, and that we need to push into Him. So I'm excited to see what He is going to do next in our nation.
My dream for CAP is that when someone calls in and they're reaching out for help, that we never have to turn them away.
The CAP services are available to everyone, everywhere in New Zealand.
Kaitaia right down to Chicago, every centre, every town, every city with services available to help those who desperately need the help.
to be able to call a free phone line and to have someone on the end of the phone who is able to say, yes, we can come and meet with you. Yes, there's a club in your area.
I want to see anyone in need in New Zealand offered relevant help by their church and being given a chance to know Jesus.
Every day, frontline staff walk into the homes of those who are struggling in the cycle of debt. They feed the hungry and they take the gospel of hope and peace. Every day, coaches sit down with those who are looking for work, who are fighting life-controlling habits and who are struggling without essential life skills. And they get to say, there is hope, there is a way forward, and there is a God who loves you. Every day, the head office staff team supports the frontline, encourages churches, and advocates for those in poverty across Aotearoa. I'm amazed and I'm humbled and privileged to be a part of something that is helping the church do what it was called to do, to preach good news to the poor and to release the oppressed. And I just love that it is God and His church that get all the glory for the transformation that we're seeing across Aotearoa. None of that would be possible without the thousands of people who have been involved in Christians Against Poverty for the last 10 years. We talk a lot about numbers and we celebrate each life change because at the end of the day, it has to come back to the people. The families, the children, the generations changed both now and for eternity. There is nothing better than that.
Because of CAP and being debt-free, we can now take our kids on family holidays.
Once I'm debt-free, I can save for my son's college.
When I finally got the job, I was so excited. I could not believe it. I really counted my blessings.
Because of you, we're able to put $67,000 towards our house mortgage.
Now that we're debt-free, I can do things with my daughter.
We are able to just use money at will to go even just to buy fish and chips.
Because we are debt-free, we can now start saving for our kids' future.
Now that I'm free from my anger, my family and I have more fun.
Because we're debt-free, we've finally found freedom and we can be the people that God wants us to be.
From the bottom of our hearts, we just want to say thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, CAP, for helping me find the job of my dreams.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whawhitai lava.
Baie dankie.
Thank you for helping me find work.
Thank you.
Pretty cool, eh? I seriously just love those faces, and two of them, Katie and Kathleen, now work at head office down the road in Penrose. Malo is a debt coach in his local community, and another ex-client that isn't actually on the video, but she just started the first life skills group down in New Plymouth just last week. So it's cool stuff. It's changing people and changing their futures and changing generations. Yeah, so after 10 years in New Zealand of CAP doing this stuff, 64 churches, ministries run in local churches, 140 churches running CAP money, but 1,083 people have gone debt-free. And over 90% of them will stay out of unmanageable debt in the future. It's exciting stuff. And you kind of, 1,083 people, but families, generations, children, future generations. It's cool. And 888 people have committed their lives to Christ now. So a few just last week. It is exciting stuff, and your church has been an awesome part of these life-changing stories. So well done. I do find it rather interesting that government often seems to be able to, claims to be able to solve our problems. And many of us definitely look to government to solve poverty in New Zealand. Jacinda Ardern, she talks about the importance of communities, doesn't she? And Bill English in his campaign was talking about the one at a time approach that's needed. But how can government do the one at a time in communities. They work with blanket policies. They talk about a targeted approach. But even with a targeted approach to those in need, government ministries seem to focus on the problem rather than the person involved. And I'm becoming more and more aware that Jesus didn't die for our sin, but he died for us. You know, that we may be atoned, that we may have life to the full. He didn't die for our problem of sin. He died because he loves us. And one of our clients, Emma, who was actually on that video, but she told us recently about her CAP experience. She said that they seemed to care more about me than they did about my debt. And I'm so proud of that. Because I'm 100% convinced that the most powerful transformation and change happens when people are loved and are believed in. And that can only happen person to person, face to face, with genuine love and care. And this is exactly what you are doing here at GCC. Through CAP, yes, and through many other ministries that you guys are involved in. But in fact, through the CAP debt help work here at GCC, I want to give you some numbers of what you have done. And you think of these numbers, not as numbers, but as people, because that is who they are. That is what they are. And so you have had the chance to love and believe in 233 client families through your debt help work. And you've seen so far 62 of them go debt-free. Not bad, eh? So again, please see that in full view. It's a person, yes, but it's a family. It's future generations. The impact is huge, and it goes beyond the debt. And through your CAP Money courses, you've seen over 200 Kiwi households receive practical money education to get themselves on track financially. And through your CAP Job Clubs, I've been reported 32, but apparently it's more like 50. So I think you've seen about 100 people through the job clubs, the job club here, and over 50% of them have found work so far. And your CAP Life Skills group that started only 6 months ago, you've already helped 17 people learn the essential life skills to live well, even on a low income. And because we're wanting to see people have life to the full, not just life free from debt, not just life in work, not just life free from a life-controlling habit or with the essential life skills. We want to see them have life to the full. We have to share the good news of Jesus Christ, which you are. So you have seen, GCC, 56 people make commitments to Jesus Christ purely through your CAP ministries here. Yeah. You have been anointed to preach good news to the poor, to release the oppressed. It's good stuff. So can I say thank you, GCC? You are doing a beautiful thing, serving those in need in your local community and those who are lost in your local community. It absolutely is life-changing for people. So I want to celebrate just a few of the people who are involved in this as well. So I missed out Bob in this earlier service actually, but Bob oversees all of the CAP ministries from your church perspective here. And Latia, or Tia as I know her, she I think is out in your children's service because she is a busy woman. She's a bit of a legend, I think, here and in CAP. But she runs your debt help service. She also runs life skills now. And there's been a number of people involved in the past as well. And Elaine, I know, is still involved in the administration, but Brian and Henry and Latoya have been involved as debt coaches over the years. And then Mark Crosley, who was in the first service, he runs the job club with Colin and Linda. And they've got their next job club rounds kicking off on the 20th, I think. And then Dan Mazengard, who now runs CAP Money. So he organises all the coaches and all the work on that out in the community as well. And there are many, many more of you I know involved in this work whom I haven't named. Some coaches, some support workers, and befrienders. And then there's others of you who have prayed for this ministry faithfully and who have encouraged both the workers and the clients, and those who have financially supported the work. So thank you all for being a part of this. You are a crucial part of the team, every one of you. And there's a team of 45 who are going to give your staff team a bit of a go at table tennis just down the road in Penrose. And we believe in your church. We're praying for you and for the clients that you see. And we love hearing the stories and can't wait to celebrate more lives changed through your work here at GCC. And we absolutely can't wait to celebrate more people coming to know their Father. And so it's a privilege to work together, serving the poor and preaching the good news of Jesus Christ in your community and communities all across Aotearoa. I love that CAP is a ministry that the whole church can get involved in and play a part in. So if this has inspired you this morning, and God has been nudging you this morning, then please don't leave here without finding out how you can get involved. We've got a bit of a table set up in the foyer. And the CAP team here at GCC could always do with more people, helping with the families they see, connecting with them, going on visits, inviting them to meals, inviting them to be a part of your whānau. And if you'd like to join the support team, please come and talk to us. Out the back, we'll be able to let you know how you can do that. And if you or a friend of yours just needs a bit of help that CAP offers, please also come to see us. We'll be able to give you a brochure and lead you in the right direction. And I'm giving away the book that I mentioned, Nevertheless. I mentioned it in the DVD. I'm giving that away to you absolutely free today. It has to come with a warning. It is a dangerous book to read. It's what grabbed my attention 10 years ago. But seriously is a must read if you want to be challenged in your faith. So that book is free and you can come and grab that afterwards in the foyer as well. And all I'd want for that is the top part of these forms that are floating around, just your contact details so that we can share stories with you as we continue this work around New Zealand. So you can get a copy of that. And finally, I just want to give you the opportunity to be generous today, to give to support the local work here through GCC, through starting or increasing your tithes and offerings to this place, and to give to the support of the national work of CAP by becoming a life changer as well. So locally, you can support Latia, Mark, Dan and the team as they go and live out this Luke 4 to people who so desperately need God and so desperately need this help. So my question here for you is, are you supporting this church financially as you know you should? GCC, you do an amazing work. You know, this CAP work that I've mentioned is literally only the start of it. When Jonathan was telling me, listing off all of the things that you guys do, I was blown away at how much this church does. I mean, yeah, it's CAP work, all of that CAP work. It's 24/7 youth, it's mainly music, it's English as a second language, it's marriage mentors and Alpha. And I just bumped into Barbara, actually, at the first service. Who knows Barbara? If you don't know Barbara, you need to know Barbara. She's pretty impressive, but I'd heard of her through one of your teams sharing her story. And so there's so much that you're involved in. She's involved down in Wellington in terms of helping aged care and through the dying process. Like it's phenomenal what she's doing as well. But when you give to GCC, you are making all of this stuff happen. So please consider how you can be generous and do that. I know that the GCC leadership team are full of faith to believe that God provides every dollar required to make this beautiful work happen. But I also know that God's provision often comes through the likely places and the likely people. And you, friends, are the likely people and the likely places. Will you consider your giving to GCC? You heard about how you can do that through the offering service, but I got to encourage you. Please give, please be generous. And then I do believe as well, new donors here get a new book. So you could walk away with 2 books today, Nevertheless, and Andy Stanley's Field of Gold, and with the joy of being generous. So 2, if you'd like to give to the national work of Christians Against Poverty, I'd ask you to consider that. It takes a bit to sustain this work, but we need to stretch out. We need to see areas that are high need, have more CAP presence, more churches running these ministries, and we need to see places who don't yet have a CAP presence, have that presence to help people who desperately need this help. Places like Whakatane, which we're currently working hard at. But it's about radically transforming families and bringing hope to communities. So if you'd like to regularly support the work of CAP, then you can join up today too as a life changer, a regular giver to Christians Against Poverty. We'd absolutely appreciate that. And to do that and join the 3,000 others who do that, you can fill in the bottom half of that form with as many details as you can. But yeah, that's me today, team. I just want to say a huge thanks again. You really are a beautiful church. And I'll just pray to finish if you don't mind. I just want to read a prayer of blessing from 2 Corinthians over you. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa. Te ātawhai o tō tātou ariki a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, ki te wairua tapu. Ake, ake, ake. Amen. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all forever and ever. Amen.